Welcome everyone to the first meeting of this authority's audit committee. Just for the benefit of those who don't already know me, my name is Matt Georgiou and I'm the Deputy Clerk for the authority. I'm opening the meeting as this is the first audit committee meeting of this authority and we're yet to elect a chair. Once we've done that, the chair will then preside over the rest of the meeting. Before I move on to the agenda to go through apologies and then election of the chair, I'd just like to remind members that the chair of the authority sent a request on the 26th of July for members to confirm their attendance on Tuesday the 13th of September at 9:30 a.m. at the fire station in Thrill for the induction of those members who were unable to attend the induction back in June. Although some members will have attended the induction in June, they are also welcome to attend this induction. And furthermore, there's a working group meeting for all members in the afternoon to discuss forward planning for the authority. The chair requested that confirmation of attendance is provided to him by close of play today. So if members could please do that, I'd be grateful for that. So moving on then to the agenda, in terms of apologies, we've had apologies for Austin Roberts. I don't know if there are any further apologies or have you received any, Alwyn?
Councillor Neil Coverley.
Thank you. So moving on to the next item of the agenda then, election of the chair. Just to remind members, we requested at the induction session in June, and I also think by email to members, those members who had an interest in chairing the audit committee to prepare a short pen portrait to help members who obviously won't know all members on the committee in their decision over who to nominate as chair. We've received 3 such pen portraits from councillors Brian Apsley, Nigel Smith and Gwynfor Owen. However, nominations do need to be formally moved and then seconded. People are able to nominate themselves and then we'll need a second. So first of all, can I invite any nominations? So Councillor John Brynmore Hughes.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Councillor Nigel Smith from Conwy.
And do we have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay. Any further nominations? Councillor Marion Bateman.
Sorry, Matt, someone beat me to the nomination of Nigel Smith.
Okay, thank you, Marion. Councillor Jeff Evans.
I too was going to nominate Nigel Smith, as I'm aware he's a well-principled, experienced man who will bring many skills to this position. So I would have liked to have nominated him, but now I will back him for that position.
Okay, Councillor Arwyn Harold Roberts.
Swn i'n licio cynnig cynghorydd Gwynfor Owen.
Do we have a second?
I propose some Councillor Roberts second me.
Okay, so can we do we have any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Councillor Brian Apsley, you are able to nominate yourself and see if we can seek a second for your nomination if you wish to do so.
Sorry, I don't believe in nominating myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if we have no further nominations, then we have nominations for Councillor Nigel Smith and Councillor Gwynfor Owen. So Alwyn, I believe you have set up a poll. Are we able to put that forward for members to vote for either Councillor Nigel Smith or Councillor Gwynfor Owen?
Yes, I will launch it now somehow. Sorry, I've got too many screens. It's in alphabetical order. So, and I'm expecting 12 replies. Okay, we've had 10 replies out of 12. And if we did wait for the other 2, it wouldn't make any difference.
I didn't get a chance to vote. I didn't see anything pop up, but I would have voted for myself, Alwyn.
Alwyn, I think we can take that vote verbally.
Okay, in that case, I'll end the poll and share the results.
Okay, congratulations, Councillor Nigel Smith. You've been elected as chair, and without further ado, I will hand over to you as chair to preside over the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, congratulations, Nigel.
I wish to thank everybody for their support, and I look forward to working with yourselves. Obviously, the chief, Dawn Docx, and the chair of the authority, Dylan Rees. So we'll move on to agenda item number 3, which is declarations of interest.
Apologies, Chair. I think the first item that you need to deal with is nominations for Vice Chair.
I do apologise, yes. So I'm seeking nominations for Vice Chair. Councillor Jeff?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to nominate Mark Young. I think, again, he is an experienced, articulated young man, and I'm confident he will act as a wonderful deputy.
Yeah, I'll second Mark as the deputy chair.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? No. So if there are no further nominations, then I presume that by default, Mark becomes the deputy chair of the audit committee. Is that correct, Matt?
I think if there's anybody who wishes to object to the nomination, they can do so. But otherwise, I think we can take it that the committee are content to appoint Councillor Mark Young as chair.
Okay, that's great.
Vice chair, rather.
Vice chair, deputy chair. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Matt. So we'll now move on to item 3, which is declarations of interest. Are there any? No? Okay, so item 4, urgent matters. I'm not personally aware of any, but Alwyn, are there any urgent matters?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to item 5, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of January 2022. I believe they're on page 2 of the report. Have members had chance to look at those minutes? Do you wish me to go through them, or do we have somebody to propose those minutes as a true record?
I didn't attend them, so I can't propose them.
Chair, just to be clear, there is a legislative provision that there is no reason why members can't move and agree the accuracy of minutes, notwithstanding that they weren't at the previous committee. That's clearly for reasons of good administration, because when you have a new administration, it would otherwise be impossible to approve those minutes.
Indeed. Well, I was actually at that meeting, and I've been through the minutes, and they seem a true record of that event. So I'm more than happy to propose those minutes. Do we have a seconder?
I will then second, Chair.
Thank you, Brian. If members are happy with that, could you please show by raising your hands? Excellent. We'll take those minutes as approved. So we'll now move on to matters arising. Alwyn, are there any matters arising from those minutes?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 7, broadening the role of firefighters in Wales. Fire Rescue Service Capacity Thematic Review. It's on pages 5.
You've had that.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chief.
I'll take this paper. Yes, this paper is to draw to members' attention the thematic review of the Fire and Rescue Services capacity to assume a broader role for firefighters in Wales. And this review was published by the Deputy Minister on the 5th of December 2021. It also brings to members' attention the letter that has been recently received from the Deputy Minister to the Chair, and it seeks your approval to respond to that letter, and it seeks your views. I think if we can move to paragraph 8, where it talks about the background to this review. So this has come out of the desire to broaden the role of the firefighters here in Wales in order to support the health service in Wales. And there has been a joint ministerial statement supporting this ambition. And on the back of that, there was a working group set up which determined what could be in scope for this assistance. And clearly we would not intend to usurp the work that our professional colleagues do in the ambulance service, but there is a recognition that firefighters could attend heart attacks, could assist with people who had fallen and injured, and could help educate falls prevention. Following this, the Fire Advisor for Wales undertook a review to look at the capacity that firefighters have to be able to undertake these additional duties. And that review, as I say, was accepted by the Minister and was published in December. And at that time, she wrote to the then Chair of the Fire Authority, commending the review and asking for the recommendations to be considered. Since then, we have had a series of meetings, both with health colleagues and with the Welsh Government officials and the Deputy Minister. Although we are keen to progress broadening the role, we recognise that some of the recommendations around assessing the shift patterns of firefighters in order to have more capacity to do this work has wider implications. Currently, what the authority, I think, could be recommended to do is to continue to concentrate on those areas that were recognised in the situational assessment that I presented to the authority back in September, but also to ensure that we do review the recommendations around shift patterns as part of the fire cover review, which we are about to commission, and that should report back in March 2023. I'd like to, as I say, commend to the authority, and that the recommendations are that they note the view from the Fire and Rescue Advisor entitled Broadening the Role, and that they also note the letter that has come from the Deputy Minister, and that they commission that the Chair should respond to that letter, and that you will provide any comments that you feel should be included in that letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I will ask the Audit Committee members if they have any questions or comments. No. Okay, so, David.
Thank you, Chair. Diolch, bore da. Just i nodi diolch i'r Chief am linellu'r gofynion newydd ar ddyheadau yn y sesiwn anffurfiol. A mae yna ddyheadau i wella'r gwasanaeth yn ogystal a gofynion statudol newydd y rai ni wynebu. Da ni yn wynebu traws newydd, a hynny ar gyfnod tra mae chwyddiant yn ddigynsail uchel. Rhain o'n eigon hen i gofio'r 80au tra oedd chwyddiant niwch, ond da ni'n mynd i gweld dyddiau fel yr ha yma o ran lefel chwyddiant o blaen. Wedyn, bydd hynny hefyd yn rhoi pwysau ar yr trafodaethau cyfloga ac yn bwysau ar gyllideb yr awdurdod. Bydd angen i chi a finna flaenioraethu'n ofalus wrth reoli'r traws newid yma yn gyfiawn ac yn fforddiadwy dros yr misoedd nesaf. Ac jyst i nodi rwan, mi fydd yna drafodaethau reit ddiddorol am blaenau ni, mae'n debyg, a fy rai ni fod yn edrych i lwyddo o fewn yr adnoddau sydd gennym ni.
Yes, thank you for those comments, David. Councillor Jeff Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These are difficult times. The economy's gone through the roof. We're aware of issues right across the country, and none more so than the railways at the moment, where the effects of attempting to change terms and conditions are causing mayhem that I wouldn't want to see then affecting the fire and rescue service. Such changes, I would hope, results in total, full, open, frank communication with the employees of the fire and rescue service and the union, because I've never liked, I was a fireman myself a number of years ago. I wouldn't want anything imposed. I believe cooperation and support for change is there and not something dictated to. One great worry I do have, and this is outside of that, is we have a particularly lean service. I wonder whether we have a real capacity at this moment to take on an increase of the role. I wonder what would happen if we were to be attending a fall or an injury or something, and then a fire call comes in. What then happens? We don't have a backup service to then send out to the fire. Do we have to leave the person who's fallen over? So I wonder whether we have that manpower, woman resource to take on additional work or a change in the role, or how will it work side by side? So I have that reservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff. I don't see any other further comments. Obviously, change doesn't come easily, and for people who worked for the authority as officers are in set patterns, and communication to our officers, staff is key to any change. Personally, I think there is capacity, but that has to be managed, and the safety and the well-being of our officers and staff has to be paramount in our thoughts if we're going to bring forward any change. And I look forward to the results of the upcoming review. Councillor Brian Aspley, you got your hand up, sir?
Yes, I've got no opposition to broadening the role, but I think the very important point is made at para 5, just by saying without detriment to core services. If that's in, it's obviously a vital part of the move, or any move to change the services, but without detriment to core services covers a lot of things. Thank you.
It does indeed. Thank you for that, Brian. Okay, members, so I'll take you to the recommendation, which is on pages 6, paragraph 7. which is the publication and the broadening of the role of firefighters in Wales 2021 thematic review report by the Chief and Fire Rescue Advisory and Inspector of Wales. And 7.2, the subsequent correspondence from the Deputy Minister to the Chair of the North Wales Fire and Rescue Authority, and authorises that a response should be written from the Chair in consultation with the Chief Fire Officer, reflecting the members' views, and sent to the Deputy Minister by the 31st of August 2022. Do we have a proposer for those recommendations? Councillor Gwynfor, and a seconder, Councillor Brian Blakely. Thank you. If members are happy, could you please show by raising your hands? Lovely. Thank you very much. I've got a couple of hands up, Brian and Councillor Jeff. Are those?
No.
No? Okay, great. We'll move on then to the Internal Audit Charter and Annual Plan, which is item 8 on the agenda 2022 to 2023, and it's on page 11 of the report. We just get to page 11, and this is presented by Keith, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
Morning,
Good morning.
Keith.
Morning. Yeah, I'm Keith Williams, Audit Manager at Conwy Council, and this is the Internal Audit Charter and Annual Plan for 22-23, which is submitted in compliance with the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards 2017. I'll just give a brief summary of what's in the paper. The requirement for an internal audit function for local authorities is implied by Section 151 of the Local Government Act, and the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2014 places a statutory obligation on the authority to maintain an adequate and effective system of internal audit of its accounting records and its systems of internal control. The Internal Audit Service's terms of reference are documented in a service level agreement with Conwy Council for the period to the 31st of March 2023. And as part of this SLA, Conwy provide 50 days per annum of audit resource. There was 8 days brought forward from 21-22, and therefore Conwy will provide 58 days audit work in 22-23. The overall strategy of internal audit is to deliver a risk-based audit plan in a professional and audit manner. Internal audit provides objective assurance and undertakes consulting activities designed to add value and improve the authority's operations. In compliance with the standards, the head of audit is required to develop and maintain an internal audit charter for delivering the internal audit service every year. The Accounts and Audit Regulations require the authority to produce an annual governance statement each year. The head of audit provides an annual report to those charged with governance to support the production of the AGS. Internal audit also operates as a consultancy role to ensure that appropriate systems of internal control are in place in relation to new projects, developments, and systems. Separate time allocations are allocated in the plan to allow for consultancy activities, fraud-related work, and any follow-up audits that may need to be undertaken. Internal audit is responsible to the Treasurer for line management purposes. However, internal audit must be independent in its planning and operation. Paragraph 11 of the report identifies the authority that internal audit has to undertake their work, their function as an internal audit service, and to undertake their work. Determining and planning the work to be carried out is based upon a needs assessment and a risk-based planning process, which produces an annual operational plan, which is submitted on an annual basis. The internal audit plan for 22-23 is attached to Appendix A, and this plan establishes audit priorities in conjunction with fire authority management, using a risk-based approach of determining the audit needs of the authority at the start of each year. The plan will also determine the resources needed to carry out the required audit duties and provide time to review and follow up the audit work of the previous year. Obviously, the audit plan is designed to act as a guide only, and changes in circumstances and emerging risks may result in changes to the plan in the year, which will be reported to the committee. The plan for 22-23 has been prepared following consultation with management. And obviously, as I mentioned, the plan also includes time to follow up recommendations from previous audits And in this year, that'll be in relation to the emergency fire appliance driving. As I mentioned, the internal audit service is delivered on the basis of a needs assessment, a risk-based approach determining the needs of the authority at the start of each year. The overriding objective of this approach is to ensure that internal audit is able to present an opinion on the control environments, governance and risk management at the end of the year. Just to mention, there is also a requirement to ensure that core financial systems are adequately reviewed to provide assurance that management has in place proper arrangements for financial control on which external audit can place reliance. Financial services, I'm sure you're aware, have been brought in-house this year after management by Conwy since 1996. So therefore, the 22-23 plan is focused heavily on the new financial systems and the implementation of Technology One. Progress against the plan and the contents of the plan will be kept under review by the head of audit in liaison with the treasurer. And of course, any changes will be reported to the committee. If I can take you to Appendix A, which is actually the plan for the year. As I've just mentioned, in the past, financial services such as creditors and payroll have been managed by Conwy for the last 26 years, but they've obviously come back in-house to the service as of April this year. So obviously the focus this year is on financial systems, payroll, payments and reconciliations, the central stores system, and obviously creditors. Technology One, as I mentioned, was implemented by the service in April 22, and work will be undertaken to ensure appropriate systems of internal control are in place and operating as intended. The planned timing in the right-hand column there, it's a provisional at the moment, and I'll be in touch with management in September just to agree timescales in terms of these 3 audits when it's best to undertake them. So recommendation is in paragraph 3, and it is that the audit committee to consider and approve the internal audit charter and annual plan for 22-23. And I'll happily answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Keith. Members of the committee, do you have any questions or comments? David?
Ie, diolch, Cadeirydd. Jyst i ddeud, oedd Keith yn sôn yn liaison with the treasurer ac diolch i Keith am adroddiad proffesiynol. Fysa Keith y cyntaf i ddeud bod fi wedi herio fo ar gynnwys drafft y cynllun ar gyfer 2022-2023, ond da ni wedi cytuno rhwng Helen MacArthur a Keith a finna i redeg efo'r cynllun ger bron fel o Keith yn ei gyflwyno yn wreiddiol. Ac mae hynny i radda oherwydd amseriad mewnoli systema oedd Keith yn sôn amdano fo. Dyna di'r ffocws eleni, a falla byddan ni mewn sefyllfa gwahanol i drafod cynlluniau erbyn 2023. Ond am eleni, swn i'n cefnogi yr argymhelliad i chi fabwysiadu'r cynllun yn atodiad A fel cynllun archwilio am y flwyddyn.
Thank you very much, David. Do we have a seconder? John, thank you very much. Just a question, Keith. Do we have suitable controls for the use of equipment, vehicles and fuel? I don't see them listed individually. Would they be in the central stores?
Yeah, they're obviously within fleet services. We audited fleet services a couple of years ago, but generally we underlook at fuel management as a separate audit, and that's probably 5 or 6 years ago since we looked at it, but it was high assurance at that time.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we have a proposer and seconder for the recommendation, which is on page 11, which is that members are asked to consider and approve the internal auditor's charter and annual plan 2022-23. If members are happy, could you please show by raising your hands? That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Keith. So we'll now move on to item 10, which is urgent matters.
Chair, item 9.
Sorry. Yeah, the treasury management activity and actual prudential indicators, which is on page 18. I do apologise for skipping that.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take this item and borrowed our PALB. It's the final report on the agenda today, and it relates to the treasury management activity and the outturn position for our prudential indicators for the previous financial year, 2021-22. So I think today we've seen that forward look into this year in terms of the audit plan, and this is that backward looking in terms of how things were last year. By way of a background to the report, yourselves as the authority are required to approve a capital programme, and that's to support the provision of the long-term operating infrastructure that we need. So those capital assets will include land and property, vehicles ranging from cars for FDS officers through to fire appliances and other special appliances such as the area ladder platform, ICT assets and other equipment. So capital expenditure itself can be funded through a variety of sources. That may include grants from third parties, receipts from sale of existing assets, revenue or borrowing. And for our authority, we largely fund all of our capital purchases through borrowing. The term treasury management relates to the management of the borrowing and associated cash flows that we need to fund that capital expenditure. In turn, borrowing creates a long-term commitment, and it's important that this is subject to proper scrutiny and governance to ensure that it's affordable not only today, but actually in the future years over the lifetime of the asset. I'm sure you'll appreciate this is quite a highly complex and technical area, and a range of codes of practice have been developed by CIPFA. CIPFA is the standard setting body for organisations within the local government umbrella, and therefore compliance with those CIPFA codes should give yourselves a high degree of assurance. As members, you will receive the strategy before the commencement of the financial year, and this provides a framework and sets out the affordability indicators. Indeed, you may have actually noted from the minutes of the last meeting that the strategy for 2022-23 was considered and approved by the Audit Committee in January 2022, and that was subsequently taken to the full Fire Authority and approved. So as Keith has indicated, since 1996, all of the financial services, including treasury management activity, has been undertaken by Conwy County Borough Council on our behalf. From the 1st of April this year, the activity has been brought back in-house and it's now managed internally by the finance team. Within the team, there are 3 qualified accountants, and we also use the specialist advisors Arling Close, who report on the loan market and provide support to us in developing our treasury management strategy. So they're very much our professional advisors because they've got sort of knowledge and understanding around the loan market, which interest rates are forecast to do, and they provide that surety for us that we understand the risks. Turning to the figures within the report itself, during the year, at the end of the year, our total borrowing was 24.4 million. And year on year, that's a reduction of 1.7 million, which reflects that our capital programme was quite low, and also that some of the loans came through to maturity. Turning to the issue of the loans, we use fixed term loans because that provides that degree of certainty. And over the period of the loan, it definitely reduces the exposure to interest rate fluctuations. When we do need a loan, we've got a number of options. We can take out loans via the UK government, which is they're known as the Public Works Loan Board, or we tend to use other public bodies also. So where a public body will have surplus cash, they may well then lend that cash to other public bodies. Those tend to be short-term in nature, and again, we've used fixed-term ones where possible. So the makeup of our loans at the year end related to, we had just over 15.43 million in PWLB, where there's an interest rate of about 2.1%, and we also had £9 million with other public bodies, where there was a much lower interest rate of 0.113%. And you'll see from the report that we've been able to benefit from low interest rates in the short term, but I have to caution that rates are rising on all debt as interest rates increase. The report also sets out investments, and it's important to know that we don't routinely undertake investment activity. So we don't hold funds to invest, we only hold the surplus cash where it's required for operating purposes. So in that respect, we have a call account with our bankers into which surplus working capital is placed until required. So we don't make loans to third parties, and therefore our cash is protected. Turning to the matter of the prudential indicators, each year when setting the capital strategy, we also set out the implications of those proposals to ensure that they're affordable and considered to be sustainable over the lifetime of the assets. This is achieved through a process of prudential indicators, and those indicators look at a range of factors. Looks at the anticipated capital expenditure in the year. It also looks at the financing and also where you need to finance, what that means to your financial sustainability. So our capital expenditure in year was lower than expected, and that was due to some slippage in the plan, I think, which reflects some of the pressures in the global supply chains. Our capital financing requirement in total was 28.4 million, but you will see from that our actual borrowing is much lower. In that respect, we used internal cash surpluses in the first instance. So consequently, we are within the operational boundary, which represents the maximum borrowing that the authority should be undertaking, and also within the authorised limit, which recognises that the operational boundary may be extended for short periods for the management of cash flows. But again, we didn't extend or breach either of those boundaries. As with all capital expenditure and borrowing, there is a revenue consequence. And therefore, the key measure is the financing cost to revenue ratio. And currently our ratio is 6.2%, which is within reasonable limits. And that's something that we do keep, we are mindful of where we put forwards for projections for capital expenditure. And then the final indicator confirms the split of loans over a maturity profile. And members will note that over 5% of the portfolio has been in short-term debt to take advantage of those low rates. So this is something that we'll be carefully managing over the forthcoming 12 months with our financial professional advisors. And that's just mindful of the fact that interest rates are starting to increase, and it's something that we need to be very careful of. I'm happy to take any questions on the report the members may have. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Helen, for presenting that report. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for Helen? Doesn't look like it. Helen, can I ask you, the short-term loans, which the average rates are 0.113%, how short-term are they?
Oh, sorry, I lost my mouse for a second. Short-term loans are all have a maturity within 12 months.
Within 12.
Yeah, and that effectively is one of the reasons that the loan rate is so low, is that those organisations who are effectively sort of lending that money to us, they have that call on it within 12 months. So there's very little by way of financial stability in the longer term for those.
Okay, thank you. The only other question I had was about the investment in all UK and Irish banks. As Irish banks are offshore, I just wondered how secure are those investments, or how secure would they be if they were invested in the Irish bank? Thinking back to the Icelandic bank incident, which affected many authorities.
I think at the moment, all of our surplus cash is actually held within the call account for our main banker. So we've no overseas external risk.
Okay, well, that's great. So as we don't have any other questions, I will move it to take you to the recommendation, which is on page 18 of the report. Paragraph 3, that members are requested to note the Treasury management activity and to approve the final prudential indicators for 2021-22. Do we have a proposer and seconder for that? John Brimore, thank you, and Brian Aspley. Thank you. If members could please show by raising their hands. That's great. That's been approved. Thank you, Helen. So now we will move on to final item 10, I think, is urgent matters. I'm not sure there are any. Clearly not. Okay, so I think that draws this meeting to a close. I'd like to thank everybody for attending this morning, and those members that may be, well, I don't think they'll actually be on the executive committee because that's separate to us, but I wish you a good day, enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you.
Diolch.